Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Hard to Kill podcast, episode 59 with Major Matt Perry, times two. Major Matt Perry, how are we?
Man, glad to be back with you. I
Can't,
enjoyed our
can't,
last conversation.
yeah, can't thank you enough for coming back on, buddy. I appreciate you.
No,
Yeah,
no, no
thank you very
worries.
much for sure.
So,
No worries.
yeah, I mean, what's it been? A month or so, or a couple months, roughly?
Longer than we had planned.
Yeah,
Life got a little busy, but glad to be back and glad to have Doc on this one as well.
definitely.
Heck yeah.
So, I know so we kind of briefly talked about your deployments last time. I was watching our last episode just to brush up on a couple of things, see where we left some things, and yeah, we didn't really dive into it too much. If you don't mind, I'd like to maybe talk specifics with you on a couple of your pumps if that's okay, just to see a little bit where you come from.
No, let's do it.
Okay. So we'll start with your first one. Who are you with and where were we going?
So went with 37 Kilo Company, and this was early spring of 2010. So we were part of that whole surge into Afghanistan after Iraq had pacified for the time being. And we
Cool.
remembered that there's still an engagement going on in Afghanistan. So we got over there, started off in.
Sir, sorry. What part of I think you were getting to, but what part of Afghanistan were you guys
Oh,
pushing?
okay. Yeah, so we started off in Farah province. I started off at a platoon position called Patrol Base Boros. And then after about 2 months there, we got diverted into Musakela. And then after
That's
doing an
cool,
op
man.
there, then we made the button hook down into Sangin.
Damn,
Right.
2010 was a extremely kinetic year, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was what it was what it was advertised.
So we talked
I
to a
was in
few,
Marja. I was in Marja in 2010, so I get it.
yeah, we
Yeah.
talked to a few guys that were in Sangin in 2010. Doc was in Marja, and I don't know, I think whoever was pumping up the Taliban at that point was trying to do some kind of push at that time zone, but we were definitely seeing some kinetic action at that point. So what was describe your AO a little bit for us, if you will.
So let's start off out west in Farah province. So get there, myself and the platoon, and we got a platoon position. We were about, I'd say, about 4 hours away from the company. That's on a good day. Um, Basically, our own little kingdom out there. There was a couple of little skirmishes. Had two squads get into little tussles, but for the most part, a lot of shaking hands, kissing babies, a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah.
We did that, and then we basically did like a battalion reset. We had a freaking legendary gunner, Matt Carpenter, who was like he had been with 3-7 literally since the towers fell. He's more
Wow.
deployments with that unit than anybody else. So he started. He was he was a platoon sergeant there. Then he was a company gunny. Then somehow this man finagled to go to the warrant officer basic course in between deployments with 3-7, so he could come back as the gunner for that. So I mean, he was like a walking legend. But he was like, "Hey, we're gonna reset. We're gonna remember that you know got to point this thing towards the enemy before we go into this next thing." And we're doing this little basically. I mean, he set up ranges in the middle of we were by Patrol Base Delaram at the time, so still out in Farah Province,
Whoa,
and
really?
we get ready. Yeah, so we get ready to go in, and we're getting an op order from our company commander. He stops halfway through, and he's like, "Hey Perry, you got to go talk to the battalion op. So you guys are flying out in 4 hours, and you're moving into Musakela." So we did a heliborne insert, and then basically landed there. We were with weapons company that was already rocking and rolling through there. And got told by the company commander, man that I revere to this day, he was like, "You're going to start here. You're going to push north, and you'll stop when I tell you to stop. And anything that gets in your way, take care of it." And that was those are the marching orders.
So you were dismounted or mounted?
We were dismounted. So
Gotcha.
they had rolled in there with their 2 cat platoons, but they didn't have a no shit dismounted force. Now they had some absolute savages that worked with them, that were basically running like fire teams through these things. But battalion saw fit to send a dismounted platoon, and we just happened to get our number called. So we went.
Motivate. Okay.
Nice. Yeah, yeah,
So
chill.
when you say patrol pace Delaram,
Mhm.
we were in Delaram for a while. Are you talking about the one in the middle of the bazaar area, like the city?
No, no, no. So this was Delaram too. This was once they set up that it was basically like a
Oh, D2,
logistical hub.
D2. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah, me
yeah.
too. Yeah,
So,
okay.
yep.
Gotcha. Okay. We've been there many a time, huh, Doc?
Yes, sir, we have.
So, okay. Dismounted through that area. That's crazy, man. So what is the civilian population like?
They had all left. So it was one of those things where you're walking. I think
Creepy.
all told, we left the hill, we landed, left the hill. We got told, 24 hours. I ended up being 18 days. And it was the whole take a compound, uh, eat the food out of the garden, drink the water out of the well, keep moving, and everybody's dropping rate at the cyclic rate because you can't stop just shitting everywhere. Um,
Yeah.
and it was, but I mean, it's one of those things, right? It's like the worst of times, but like,
The
I
best.
mean, here we are 13 years later, and I'm like excited talking about
You know.
it, for lack of better words. Like it was what we signed up to do. Like it was what we wanted. We got the op, and we got to push, and that was what it came down to.
Do you ever like try to understand that? Like, I mean,
No, I don't think you can. Like in all honesty, and
seriously.
I'm not just like sick and demented. Like I don't think you can. I stopped trying to explain it to people. I stopped. Honestly, there was a while there. I kind of, because I mean, there's like literally the worst days of my life are tied to that as well. But there are moments where you just realize, like, I'm not going to get through the feelings that I'm trying to talk about, and especially now, over a decade later, looking at it and being like, man, I remember being young, dumb, and hungry too. Especially, in the current job that I have, because I was listening to a podcast the other day, man, and it was spot on. And it was, YouTube and social media have crushed what that Marine Corps experience is for the next generation. And what I mean by that is, um, we got guys like I can get on here, talk to you and Doc all day about it, and we can find common ground and stuff like that. But that's not the environment that we live in right now. So you got, well, I've been in the fleet for 2 days. How come I'm not, on the two-way rifle range yet? And it's like, dude, that's not, you don't
No.
pick it. And I'll tell you, um, be really, really fucking careful what you ask for. Be really
Oh,
careful about that.
Absolutely. I can understand that
yeah.
completely.
Yeah, no, like, so my stepdad, he did 20 years in the Navy. And even talking with him, and like, of course, my mom, she's like a lot of our moms, where she was just so excited that her son signed up to go to freaking war. You know, she was excited, but she'll even ask me questions. I'm like, Mom, I just don't want to. I'll talk about it. I don't care. I'm an open book now, but I'm like, you just don't want to hear some of the shit, Ma. You know what I mean? Like,
No,
hey, dude, we're in the middle of a firefight. I got to take a piss, dude. Make sure I don't get shot.
yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like I can look back and I can remember a guy I had named Fry, literally trying to take a shit in the middle of a firefight. Like, can somebody please, for the love of God, cover me because I am trying to use half of my frog blouse to wipe my ass right
Oh
now. Like,
yeah.
just moments like that are, and 13 years later, you look back on them and you kind of chuckle a little bit about them. But at the time, you're like, dude, this is, if you're a young second, I was a second lieutenant that entire deployment. Like I hit the fleet and, we shipped right out. I was a late drop to the battalion. So when you're sitting there and you're looking at it, you're like, dude, this is literally what I signed up to do. Like this was like the best of times, the worst of times, you know the saying. But it's I mean that's what it was. So then we finished that. We retrograde back. We get back to D2. Longest fucking convoy of my life. But we get back there and then we get told, hey, 48 hours and we're going into to Sangin where the Brits are rocking and rolling at that point in time. And we get there and continue on with the marching orders at that point. And it's really interesting, man. Like I didn't I guess I've never really looked back on, that. I have a journal. I'll say that. I kept a journal.
You
Well,
kept a
that's
journal
some of the
through that whole
advice
time?
yeah, I kept a journal
That's
through
badass.
through
That's right. You said that. You said that. You told
through
me
my
that.
2 times and my 2 trips with 3-7. I've admittedly never read them. I just haven't gone back to read them. I printed them out. I'm sure they're on a computer somewhere. They sit in a binder, and maybe when all of this is said and done, I'll go back and read it. But never once have I opened it back up since that day,
Not
or
an
since
easy
I
thing to
finished
do.
them.
Definitely not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
I,
Fuck,
I think
for
I
sure,
think
man. For sure.
I think it's a combination, right? It's not an easy thing to do, but it's also I don't want to. I can't be the guy. I mean, I'm still doing this. This is still my job. Like, I can't be the guy that lives in the past, that consistently compares units that I get to that unit. And you read about stuff, and how do you compare things like
Yeah.
courage, adversity, shit like that, when not all situations are created the same. So
Yeah.
I don't want to look back and consistently compare everything to 2010, 2011, 2012. It's 2023. Like, let's compare to 2023. Let's do that.
How do you just being from those units, dude, just being a part of just those like stellar teams that you were, the guys that you did the damn thing with. How do you, move on to a new place and even try to emulate that? That's gonna be hard to do. I mean,
I think that you appreciate them for what they are. You appreciate the guys that you're with when you're with them. You never forget about them. If you get the opportunity, you pay it forward to them. I mean, I still have great comms with a lot of guys in that unit. They'll hit me up for job recommendations, or can you vouch for me for this? And yeah, man, you let me know what you need. But at the same time, you never compare guys you've had in the past to guys you have now. I'm using guys in the collective term,
of course,
obviously, but
of course.
it is you don't compare because they're not the same. Imagine, I flipped the script. So imagine showing up to a unit and they're like, well, this motherfucker's not the same guy we had last time. Like, we want that guy back. Like, no, man, I'm what you got, and you're what I got. You didn't pick me, I didn't pick you, but we're either going to succeed together or we're going to fail independently. You let me know how this is going to play out.
See, I love that because I came to Nick's team. I came to the team as a combat replacement. So they'd all done the work up together, CACs, all that fun stuff. And I came to them. They were about, what, 3 months in, Nick, I
Yeah,
think.
at least, yeah.
Yeah, February 2011 is when I hit their team. And yeah, so I totally get that feeling because I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm walking into. Like, I just like a dummy. I just wanted to go back, and do the damn thing that I signed up to do. I was like, I'll go. And they're like, okay. And I was sitting out there all by myself. I'm just sitting there waiting. I'm like, I think they'll be here soon. I don't, I'm like, I'll hang out and wait, I guess, till someone yells my name.
Oh
So
yeah,
I
man.
got,
Combat replacements are unique. It's a very unique part of the military because you're sitting out there and we got them in 2010, got them again in 2011,
yeah,
2012, and you're
clearly,
sitting out
yeah.
there and you got the guys you trained up with, what makes them tick, this, that, and then there's a reason combat replacements come, and you're not very fucking thrilled about the reason why they're
Yeah,
here,
exactly.
but now they are here, so you got two choices. You either
Mhm.
A, shit on them, or B, do everything in your power to get them as up to speed as possible. Otherwise, your ass is going to get more combat replacements when those guys
Facts.
get hit.
Great answer.
For sure, facts.
Yeah, so when you said I understand shitting on them because it's never easy to replace somebody, and it's almost like you kind of feel a way about them a little bit because there's no way that they can take over for what that guy left behind. But also you don't have the opportunity to even do that if you're in a kinetic area. You got to school them up ASAP, just as you said perfectly, just so you don't have more of them, and that's perfectly put. Um, But yeah, I never thought of it like that, Doc. That must have been really difficult for you to do.
Yeah, it definitely helped it like me, you, Zach, and then obviously Captain Donnerstag. It was like that with us, like the way we hit it off. So that made it, you guys were like, oh, he's not just some fucking chump off the street. Like he's got it. He can diss an ass 240. He can fucking diss an ass saw. He knows how to, work. And yeah, so that really helped. I mean, just because I wouldn't have volunteered for that if I thought I was putting someone else in danger. You know what I mean? Like it is combat, yes, but
Sure.
yeah, we hit it pretty quick, and that was, and you've brought it up to me before, Nick, and like, yeah, man, you were like, just because me and you, we were Johnny on the spot when it came to volunteering. You're like,
Yeah,
oh, we'll go, send me and
definitely,
Nick, you got
definitely.
this.
So, Maj Perry, you kind of remind us of someone that we're very, very fond of.
Yeah.
We had a mentor in our unit of Captain Donnerstag. He was a very young captain at the time, and just extremely, extremely good at his job. And when I say his job, we were mounted on most of our missions, at least for half of it. And the man could find IEDs like something I've never seen before. Like kind of almost to the point where it was uncanny. Like it just didn't make sense. And keep in mind, I was Vic One gunner. I take this shit serious, like it's my job. It's my job to point these things out and notice differences, notice odd things in the road. This man would make me look like a chump. And he was just really, really, really well versed in I don't know what, because half the times when he found shit, I don't know what he was looking at, but it made me think about this took years afterwards to do how young he was when he was over there, including you were in the same boat, dude. To have the responsibilities as a young officer to have a group of guys and just to do the damn thing over them together. That I can't imagine that at 24, 25, 26. I always think back to like the shuras that we would do and the important people that would
Yeah,
come out to talk to
yeah.
us. And keep in mind, we were in just we lived outside the wire with like an A&A AHP group in the Delaram area. And it was a very unsettling feeling because you almost always felt like something was off. Um, did you ever get that feeling in the position that you were in, just like odd feelings or odd?
So I was 23. My platoon sergeant was 25. I had a corporal squad leader who was 19, and I had a lance corporal squad leader that was 19, and I had a lance corporal squad leader that was 18. Our average age was 18 months or 18 years, 9 months. That was
Wow.
my platoon. We had 36 brand new promoted lance corporals. That was it. Nah, and then the number may be off, may have been 30. But we were a very, very young unit. But I think that actually worked to our advantage. And what I mean by that is we were so young, so green. There was never oh, well, so and so said do this, so and so said do that. Coming into it, I mean, we had three guys. I had my platoon sergeant had done the fight for Fallujah. My guide, for lack of better billet description, but really that guy who would grab you by the scruff of your neck, Lieutenant be damned, and like, hey, all right, get over here. That was Sergeant now, Master Sergeant Mac, and he had
Always need
done
one of those.
Ramadi.
Always need
Oh
one of
yeah,
those.
and one of my squad leaders had been with 3-4 for some of their more kinetic Iraq pushes. After that, we were all green as hell. And it was so you got a unit of 38, you got 35 of them who are completely untested in every regard. But I think that worked to our advantage because, yeah, we were young. Yeah, I'm sitting in some of these shuras like, the hell you want me to do about this? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm talking to a guy who's older than my like great grandpa,
Right?
who still
Yeah.
thinks he thinks I'm fucking Russian. Like, I mean that's really the reality of it. You're talking about guys who have been at war or fighting war for longer than you've been alive. Like, and I think that we discredit that a lot of times. We say that how the fuck do we find ourselves in this situation against guys who are eating rice and fighting in sandals? Well, it's because that's all they've fucking done their entire life. Like, there's a reason they're still this old
Yep.
and this alive. It's because
Yeah.
they are really good at this.
They are.
Like, let's not discredit that.
Yeah, they are some resilient motherfuckers, that's for sure.
I talked to a lot of guys that actually did the fighting over there, and everyone that actually like banged it out says the same thing about them. Like, you can't not appreciate that they're good at what they do if you're a real warrior, because warriors recognize warriors. And one thing that those guys can do is fight, man. They've been doing it for a long time.
So, I mean, you talk about resilience, you talk about capability, and I'll give you an example. So this is when we're in Musakela. This is June, and I walk us into just a really well placed ambush. There's 3 machine gun positions. There's guys moving around on motorcycles. There's the whole 9. We finally get the platoon reconstituted. So you got a platoon of grunts firing at the rapid rate, and we spent a lot of fucking ammo that day. And they're firing back just as bad, and they're going toe to toe. They're in a nice little wadi system. They got dug in positions. We're trying to, dig the earth down and get as low as possible. And finally, we get A-10s, Cobras, and F-18s on station.
Yeah.
And first off, the A-10 is flat out the greatest platform ever made. It is literally a machine gun that they put wings on. I don't like whoever thought of that in their previous life was a grunt. I'm convinced of it. They were a Lance Corporal, and they were like, what's the coolest thing I could make?
Facts.
Let's give a machine gun wings and watch this thing go to work. And so, I mean, you got A-10s checking on station. So now think about it. Like, if you're us, you're like, oh, cool, that is awesome. I mean, they're moving so slow, we can see the pilot. And you've got an enemy that doesn't flee, but actually picks up their rate of fire. Because they're like, well, fuck it. If I'm going out, I'm trying to take as many of you with me as I can.
Going out of the shield.
Like, there's a I look back a decade later and I'm like, I think that they're world-class assholes, but
Facts.
there is a point to where you look at it and you say, all right, like, you gotta at least respect the tenacity to
It's hard to do. It's hard to do.
It is very hard to do. It's hard to say out loud.
Yeah, it is.
But there's a point of it, and I'm not some fucking sympathizer by any way, shape, or form.
Facts.
But when you sit there and you look at it, you say, if the tables were flipped, is that what we would do? We'd stand there, outnumbered, outgunned by shit not only coming eye level, but coming from the sky, and hold your own, knowing that's it. You're not leaving that wadi system.
Well put.
That's $1 million question that you have to ask yourself throughout the rest of it. Because when you sit here and you say, man, the going is tough, or this or that, and you say, what is, and this is why I get really pissed. I love sports, man. Love them to death. But I get really pissed when I hear words like adversity in sports. I'm like, you're not facing adversity. Adversity is not going home.
I bet you love LeBron.
But that's I actually am a fan. I will admit that. But it's probably more so because so many people don't like him. So I'm like, well, now I gotta like him.
I get that.
And you've been doing it for 20 years. Like, there's a certain point where you're like we have the saying, right? Like, you gotta respect an old man in a profession where men usually die young. You got a guy who's been doing something for 20 years at the top of the game. I mean, it's hard to discredit that.
Definitely.
But back to our topic. I mean, when you sit there and you look at it, you say, okay, as I look back on it, and I went back and watched our episode too, and a lot of it was based upon, the first one was based on resilience and based upon adversity and, different things and mental mindsets and stuff like that. And it's hard, but if you're a student of history, you watch some of these other cultures and you realize, like, this is not unique to just the eagle, globe, and anchor. It is a warrior mindset.
Yes.
That's a question that you have to ask yourself is, do you embody what that mindset means through not just when the going gets tough, but through your everyday actions?
And, we brought it up, me and Nick, and of course, we've talked about it before, but did you have relationships with some just the Afghan civilians? Because we talked about how important that is. Because if shit was hitting the fan, sometimes they'd be like, go.
Yeah, we had a
No.
couple of them.
We
Yeah,
had some
so we had
building a
in
fucking
bar
relationship.
in out in Farah province, so out by Barrows, um, we fell in on a pretty established base. So who's who in the zoo was part of the turnover. Musakela, there was no turnover. That was, it's like a rite of passage for grunt units is clearing the Musakela Valley. Um,
Yeah.
you always think you're the first one to do it, and then you like go back and read. You're like, well, this shit was cleared in 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, look, we're the 2010 variant. Here we go. But when we'd come over ridge lines and we'd start pushing on the hamlet, and you could see it from 500 yards out, the village, they would leave. They'd take their cows, they'd take their possessions, and they would leave. And then you knew it. You saw them leaving, egress and east or west, and all right, well, here it comes. We're getting ready to get into it. Same thing with Sangin, the Brits. They just had different TTPs than we had. But then we go back there in 2011 and 12, and it is more at that point we had turned over with 1-5, and there is more of a turnover. Hey, here's who's who in the zoo. The battlefield had completely changed. They adjusted their TTPs because going toe to toe just wasn't working out for them.
Yeah.
That's a creepy thing when you see the enemy adjust their TTPs for what you're doing. Seriously, we saw it a few times, and I never gave them that much credit early on in the deployment. I didn't, think they were that good to go or savage. And it's a creepy thing when they start putting IEDs in different positions and in areas where you would normally walk or normally cover, or it's just something you really have to consider. Now, Matt, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What advice would you give a young officer trying to, make his bones and in today's Marine Corps? What are some of the things that you would say they need to embody?
It's a couple things. And I read a lot about it through both, just different literature that's been published, as well as on social media. First thing, so these are in no particular order. These are as they're coming to the top of my head. I have a lot of, I admittedly did not do social media before I came to my current billet. I was one of these holdouts, I don't want to do it. I'll tell you right now in 2023, if you're not doing it, you're a fucking idiot. You are, especially on the young officer side. That's where all of your team is. They're all on there. You read what they write about. You can find out their interest. You can find out how their day is going. You find out about just things that they're not going to outright openly tell you. It also serves as a back door for them. Man, I wake up every morning to messages from guys on my team right now of, oh, hey sir, this, that, the other, want you to consider this when you look at it. It's like, all right, cool. It is 2023. That is the open door policy. That is what it is. You're never going to find, the Lance Corporal that wants to walk past, the Sergeant Major, all the first sergeants, everybody like, nope, going to see the CO. He says he has an open door policy. So I'm marching there. You'll find a couple of them, but the majority of them aren't going to do that.
No.
But they will message you. They absolutely will. They're smart as hell, man. Leads me to my second point. There's some smart son of a bitches in the fleet right now. They really are. No, they're not all. Times have changed. They're not all, could have gotten a D1 scholarship to play football somewhere. They're not all like that. But you got to leverage their capabilities. And that's your job, is to figure out who's good at what. You said I reminded you of that captain earlier. Admittedly, I don't know him. I'll tell you, I'm average at best. At best. And I'm confident enough to say that.
You're
average
humble too.
At best. I am
very
damn
humble,
good. I am damn good at figuring out what people are good at, though. I will say that. And
That's
then
huge.
leveraging them to that capability. So you got the guys. Let's go back to, 2010. Okay, hey, where are my city boys at? Because you guys are about to be the guys talking inside of all these villages. I don't need to hold every sheriff. Why do I need to hold every sheriff? I don't go on every patrol. Make the squad leader the face of the AO. Same thing I have out here. I got 11 different I call them patrol bases. I got 11 different patrol bases that cover Louisiana and Mississippi. I don't need to go to every key leader engagement or whatever it may be, school board officials, key influencers. No, I want the station commander going to do that, because that's the squad leader, because that's the son of a bitch that they need to call So when they are developing those relationships and fostering that, I maybe come around once every month or two. If it's all built on me, then what happens when I'm not here? So therefore, you push those guys to the front. So leveraging your people to their abilities. The third thing I say is you got to take risks. I read about it all the time. These guys are, training. We don't want to push the envelope too far. No, I mean, fuck that. Push it as far as you can fucking push it. Make these guys so damn tired they can't even bitch by the end of it because they fell asleep at the armory trying to clean their weapons. Like that's the level that you got to push these guys to. Later on, I admittedly I didn't get much of an opportunity to do that in 3-7. Man, we went deploy, back deploy. That it was fast. In between, I think we had a couple months dwell time, and they were like, "Hey, how many times can we do ITX? How many times can we do this? How many times can we do that?" But when I left that and I got over to I went to recon after that, and I get over there and you get around a bunch of smart guys as well, and they're like, "Hey, so we want to do this, this, and this." I'm like, "Cool, let's do this, this, and this, but we're going to increase the distance. We're going to minimize the targetry. We're going to do this. We're going to do that." And the harder you push these guys, the more they're going to fucking hate you because you're going to wear their asses out, but they're going to respect the hell out of you because you're willing to do that ORM, to sign it. And every time you sign an ORM as a young officer, you're basically saying, if this fails, I'm fucked. That's essentially what the ORM says. But you got to be willing to sign it, and you got to be willing to push them to that limit, because when you want to push them, when they need to be pushed to that limit, the time to figure that out is not when they're on the line.
Facts.
That's all it comes down to.
Yeah, and going back, and I know it's a corny freaking statement, but the more you sweat in training, the less you're bleeding more. And
huge believer of that. 100% believer of that.
I finished out my contract or my enlistment as being an instructor of combat medicine, and I had sadly, I had some lessons I could teach. I wasn't the most popular guy, but you know what I mean?
Well, and that's the same thing, right? So like, let's use an example. We'll stick with medicine, right? So you're running the range, and hey, Bob, you're down. Okay, cool. So what do most people do? They'll go up there, half-heartedly put a tourniquet on, and then, okay, now we're going to do this, this limp, Kazovac, 5 feet, and then, okay, the Kazovac platform's getting here. And then you find yourself with, your engineer, a double amp that it's taken 13 tourniquets to stop the bleeding, and you got to move them 400 yards over waffle fields to get to the Kazovac platform. That ain't the time to figure out that so-and-so is going to fold when you do that. No. The time to figure that out is when you're on the range, you're running range 400, and you get to trench 3, you put somebody down, and you say, no, Kazovac is back by the assembly area. That's a quarter mile through a wadi.
Yep.
Now you're going to figure out how heavy dead weight is.
Facts.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And there were guys that were like so happy that they were the casualty.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I don't blame them. Come on, you guys, you Marines, you take a little break when you can get them.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, everybody wants to.
I don't want to walk or run.
Oh yeah. We used to, and the thing is, I was listening to another podcast not too long ago, and they talk about, it's more like fitness oriented, and the thing is always, fitness is such a big part of military culture, right? But what are you fit for? Because you can have the guy who, can bench press a fucking house. He can squat the entire city, and God bless those guys. But when you've got to move somebody in kit X amount of feet to get them to where they need to, and the clock is ticking for it. The worst thing to do is to run up to that son of a bitch and figure out that he is 250 pounds of pure muscle. Because you don't have a Kazovac team anymore. You got a Kazovac platoon at that point.
Yeah.
Like it is, and you're making makeshift litters. Because how many people are running around with a pulled litter? That shit's heavy as hell too.
Yep.
Yeah. No. And see, I was never like a PT stud. Like I'd keep up. I scored high enough to be. I was doing my thing, but when it came to like, I was more of a functional fitness guy, not like, oh, I can bench press more than you, at the gym. But when it came down to brass tacks, you know what I mean? I'm like, check me out. And I didn't get smoked as fast either, you know, because we had some big dudes. Nick's a big guy. He's a thick boy. He's a big dude. And, you know, we had some guys on our team too. And on my first deployment as well, they were just, all they did is spend all their free time in the gym. And I'm like, you realize I have to drag you out, right?
Well, not
Like,
not only that, dude. What I started to realize is that's not functional for combat, man.
yeah,
You
like
get tired quick, man. You really
yeah.
get tired quick with that shit, especially when you're running, 3 patrols a day. You carrying shit with you, dude. I lost that muscle quick over there, bro, and it became
So
functional.
yeah, so we had an instructor going through the basic reconnaissance course. I've never forgotten what he said. And while it applies specifically, or while it applies definitely within that MOS, I believe it applies across the Marine Corps. And so this guy, we're on patrol phase. It's the final thing, and we're tired. We haven't slept. We haven't eaten. They gave us like an MRE to last. And he sits there and he's like, "Hey, you guys tired?" And we're like, "Fuck yeah, we're exhausted." And he was like, "All right." He's like, "Let me teach you the most important lesson you're gonna learn right now." I was like, "All right, what's that?" And he said, "I want John Deere's. I don't want Lamborghinis." And I was like, "John Deere's? The hell is this man talking about? He wants a fucking tractor? I want a tractor, something to drive me somewhere right now." And he was like, "No, think about a Lamborghini. You got to wax it. You got to polish it. You got to put that really good gasoline in it. You got to make sure that it always stays in the garage and it'll run lights out when you want it to if you
Yeah,
give it all those things. Now, consider a John Deere. You could treat a John Deere like shit. Hell, you can piss in the gas tank and that thing is going to run.
yeah,
So when
Yeah.
you adopt that John Deere mentality of no, I don't always need 8 hours of sleep. I don't always need 3 straight meals a day. I am. It is possible to go on a field op without pre-workout. Like that is a very real thing to do. It is possible to survive off MREs. Now the backlash is going to suck. I'm very much privy to that, but it's the reality of it. And when you have a team that adopts that mentality, they're going to continue to push when they don't have all the things that they normally do. And I love that quote. I live by that thing.
Yeah, I
absolutely.
wrote it up. That's what I was doing, man. I was writing that down. That's perfect, sir. That's awesome. I love that because I grew up, doing rodeo, working on some of my family's farms and stuff. And, yeah, dude, a John Deere, you could literally slice all the tires and that thing's still going to be like, well, are we still going? Like,
Oh
let's
yeah,
go.
100%.
So something you said kind of perked my interest is kind of how you conduct yourself and how you said you have to take risks and you have to do certain things as a leader. And to me, that means that you've really adopted the modern mindset of leadership because it's changed a lot and it's adapted a lot over the years. And something that I can give you an example of is I watch Jocko a lot. I love Jocko stuff, and he was on there talking with someone. I forget who it was, but they were talking about how I don't know if it was educating Marines, teaching Marines, or leadership was all kind of put into one. But I think of it as when I was coming up in the Marines, they yelled a lot. Discipline was always boom, 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 fire and brimstone. And if you didn't learn something right away, you got trashed. You went out and they drilled you in the sand pit and they disciplined that way. And they talked about how that's kind of changing, how the thrashing is kind of getting pulled back a little bit. And they're really focusing on teaching so everybody can understand. And I don't know, I feel like that kind of contradicts some things in the Marine Corps. Eh, does that make sense at all to you? Would
It makes sense. I'll tell you, I wish I could say that I don't yell, but that would not be accurate. Um, it just wouldn't. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't.
Sometimes you gotta.
I think that it's a cultural thing. So I believe that on the officer side, and I'm trying to get better at it. Right, seek self improvement, know what you fucking suck at, and try
yeah,
not to suck at it tomorrow. I believe that on the officer side, we have to be more restrained than on the senior enlisted side. It's evidenced through our schools. So I'll give you an example. Right, going through, and these are two schools that kind of compare to each other. Going through BRC, it's completely staff NCO led. Staff NCO and senior enlisted. I mean, I saw the captain once, and that was when he came out to tell me my orders had been changed. And that was behind the scenes. He was, trying to set conditions for the training, trying to do this, trying to do that. But it was all, mass sergeants, gunnies, staff sergeants, like sergeants. That's who taught us. And they would fuck us up nonstop. Like there was a lot of yelling, there was a lot of doing this, there was a lot of doing that. Then I go over to I was fortunate to get to go to an Army school, and there's captains who were fulfilling the same role that we place staff sergeants into. And I'm like, what's the point of yelling for this sake? Like, you got a sergeant first class right there that can chew my ass just as well. You've got, staff sergeants that are, proven team guys, team leaders, guys who have already earned this damn certificate that we're all here to get. And why not have them do it? Because I believe that there's a measured approach to it. And if an officer is going to yell, I wrote about this one time. I got taught this lesson by my old man one time. I'm walking my dog, and dog breaks off the leash and he runs across the street. And I'm like, hey, I start yelling at him. Well, he starts to run back to me because he's reacting to that yell. Well, you know what he almost does is run right in front of a car that's coming. Opposed to after, all the dust is settled, my old man's like, hey, before you start yelling, look left, look right. Is the yelling going to get you the reaction that you're looking for? Or is the yelling going to send your dog into an 18-wheeler going 60 miles an hour down the freeway?
Like that.
Yeah, no, I love that, sir. That's good. That's a good quote too.
But like, back to your question, man. Like I said, I wish I could say I don't. I really do. I get very emotional. I invest a lot. I'm an emotional leader. Know exactly what kind of a leader you are. I got some guys that, some of my best friends, some peers that I aspire to be like, are very stoic in their nature. They're very even keeled all the time. While I would love to approach that, to do that is not who I am as a person, and it is going to further diminish what it is that I do have that are strengths when it comes to it. Because at the same time, like, I'll yell at you, I'll cuss you out, I will continue to do corrective action. I'll also ride that ship to the bottom of the ocean and then go on a 5-minute breath hold with you while we try to get you to the surface and get you to find Jesus. I'll fuck you up, but nobody is going to come in and fuck up the unit that I'm in charge of.
I like that.
It's always a protect the house mentality.
I love that.
Let me apply so much pressure to you. There is no pressure that anybody above me can apply to you that will even matter anymore.
Yeah, well, and so, like, if you don't mind me asking, you don't have to say if you don't want to. But, like, so any of your guys, like, do they know that you do kind of have, like, that open door, like, that policy where they can knock on your door and be like, hey, sir, I'm going through some shit. I need some help.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. So I'll give you an example, man. He's out now, but we're getting ready to go through got the platoon. We're in Okinawa at the time. Got to do the CPT qualification, right? And got a guy, he had already done it before, going through some marital issues, right, on the home front. Not a good situation. And he had been battling through them. He was a communicator. And son of a bitch could shoot lights out, though, because we had done stress shoot after stress shoot. And the motherfucker could handle a 45 like nobody's business. So I go to, he comes to me, knocks on the door. And he's like, hey, boss, I'm going to do it. We got to do it. We got to get the qual. It's probably going to cost me a marriage. And I'm like, nah, man, let me see what I can do. So I go down there and I talk to, I'm like, hey, he just went through this a year and a half ago. He just went through, he's a high shooter, for the love of God. If he can walk in here on day one, on the 45 and the M4, let him go home and save his marriage before we deploy. And they say, all right, my man Creech walks in there day one, cleans the targets, goes home. That was the deal. Like, if you got drama, first you got to stick your hand in the air and say, hey, I got a situation. Like, let me help you, but I can't fucking guess what's going on inside your mind.
Exactly.
I can't do it. But when you're a leader and one of your guys comes to you to ask for help, you better do everything in your damn power to get them that help that's needed. And it's going to come. Like, yeah, I got looked at like I was an idiot for even asking. I had my ducks in a row. I had a justifiable reason why he shouldn't have to stand on the firing line for 14 hours a day for the next 9 weeks. And this is what we gain at the end. We gain, hands down, the best 06-21 that I had in any team that I've ever been a part of. And we allow him to then go and say that. It's the same thing I have here, man. I'm under the gun on recruiting every single month. And nobody cares how many people I have. This is what you owe me. That's what it is. But guys have lives. And when you prove yourself to be an asset to the unit, it's the leader's job to continue to make sure that you are forever going to be an asset. Because when your home life gets that messed up, you become a liability. That's what you are. Because I've had one guy who was actually ironically a doc. He was my Sark. I've had one guy who in my entire career that has had a fucked up home life, but he could perform lights out at work. 99.9% of them, if their home life is screwed up, their work life is trash.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah. Are you comfortable saying who the doc was, who the Sark was?
Oh yeah, 100%. Sogosian.
Oh shit.
My little Polish guy. Love that son of a bitch to death. I'll call him right now and tell him I just said he had a fucked up home life.
I know him, but I don't know him obviously like you do. But yeah, good shit, man.
No, I love Sogosian to death. That man. I mean, but like I said, you talk about assets. So when we were in the unit, we had lost the training chief at one point. Hey, sir, I'll go do this. And I'm like, dude, you wear different candies than me. Like, what do you mean I'll go? And I didn't really know him that well at the time. Puts together this training package. I'm like, well, this is about 700 times better than anything I'm going to put together. So good job, Doc. Now you got two jobs. But that's like I said, man. I'm average at best, really good at finding out what people are good at, though.
Yeah.
That's a great trait as an officer, man. I mean, to be able to put together the perfect team. I mean, come on.
I don't think I've ever had the perfect team. I think that I've had guys who all see what the end state should be and are willing to work towards it. Because that's all you can ask for, right? Like name the perfect Marine infantry platoon. You can't do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. But you've watched platoons do miraculous things. And it's because they buy in and they all buy in together and they go out and they're dead set like, hey, it's the fucking mission. We're going to accomplish this goal. That's all it comes down to.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we're lucky to have that. It sounds like you were lucky to have that because you were the one, you were the one with the carrot in front of the horse. Like, come on, boys, this is what we're going to do. We're going to fuck some shit up and we're all going to, we're going to do our damnedest to be our best. And that's freaking cool. And the fact that you remind me a lot of Donner Stagg. I know we bring him up every damn fucking episode, but he was approachable. And I think that's very, very awesome for an officer for like a junior Marine. Like me and Nick were E3s when we were on that team. And yeah, if you had a problem or, anything, you could just walk right up and, and even with that, like on our team, like, so Nick is like a Lance Corporal could be like, hey, sir, this is fucked up. Calling out like a corporal, even being like, hey, this is being done wrong. And, problem will be fixed. But there was no hate with it. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, see that. I see that.
Yeah, I think you have to be approachable. I think that you have to continuously reinforce the chain of command and the chain of influence. And I say the chain of influence all the time because you got to let people do their jobs. You do. But at the same time, there's a difference between like, hey, sir, I didn't get chow today. And hey, sir, like I'm thinking about ending it. Like, okay, cool. Like, guess what? Now this is me. Now the damn with everybody in between. Like, you came to me with this problem. We're going to talk about this problem and we're going to figure this out right now. Or at least attempt to get you the right resources that you need so that we don't make an unrepairable mistake is at the end of the day. But when we look at it, you have to be approachable. You have to be, and there's times, and I'll openly admit this, there's times where I'm like, hey, Sergeant, Staff Sergeant, Gunny, Lance Corporal, whatever it is, like, dude, I can see that look in your eye. Like, we're gonna take off these damn oak leaves, and we're gonna talk. Matt to Sean, what
That's
is it?
all.
Talk to
That's
me,
all.
man. Talk to me. I gotta know what you're talking about right now.
No, I understand how you have to walk the line with that. Um, but I think when you go over the top to do for like a junior Marine or just an enlisted guy, just to be real with them, that almost makes them appreciate you so much more, and they want to show you that they can handle that. So they're not going to take advantage of that to keep that line of communication open to some degree. And they also want to make you look good.
Yeah, and back to the lessons on the young officers, like you're going to do that, and you will get burned.
Facts.
I got like some third-degree burns on his body, like, and there's been times where I'll go to vouch for the guy, and I'm like, no, we got to do this for him, we got to do this for him, and then he will fuck me 6 ways to Sunday.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you never do that again. Like, you got to be willing. If you're going to play with fire, you got to be willing to get burnt. It's the same thing.
Gotcha.
What's the first rule of a knife fight? Your ass is going to get cut.
Yeah.
It comes down to
Yeah.
just embrace it. The cuts are coming.
I thought it was bring a gun. Sorry.
Okay, the second rule of a knife fight. If a gun's out of the question.
So you touched upon it briefly before. How is social media changing the game, man? Because we talked about before. We kind of came into the Marine Corps at the same time, and I think you know how it was when we came in, dude. It was put your fucking phone away. I don't want to hear about it. Be careful when you take the
man.
goddamn pictures. I don't want it coming up and fucking us over somehow. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
now,
you'd be holding combat camera hostage. Like, I'm gonna see everything on that camera before it goes up.
yeah,
I think that, and there's some flat out like pioneers of this. And you see a lot of them. I've gotten to meet a lot of them. Had
not to
had some
interrupt you.
really good
Thank you for
conversations.
putting me on to Northern Provisions, by the way. Fucking great page.
Oh yeah, he's a solid guy. And like all of the ups,
Yep.
for
Oh yeah.
example. So like obviously, and I won't use their real names. They can use them if they want, but like Goons Up is great. He's been around for a minute, but a lot of the offshoots, those are younger guys.
Oh, I
They're
thought they were
not
all him.
of no, 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 no,
Oh.
no. They're
Oh,
all
okay.
run by different people. But they are guys that were literally playing with that fire when 5, 6 years ago, like,
Gotcha.
hey, you'll get NJP'd for this.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
they're like, no, we're going to build and they built communities. They
Yeah.
built communities
Yeah.
based around the
Yeah.
pride of what it is that they do. And what we once admonished, we're now praising. We're saying, like, look at you're bringing that unit camaraderie. So it's changed in that regard. And I think that more of the older people have realized, like, dude, you're not avoiding this. It is spreading. So you either A, get on the train, or B, become so far removed from
Yeah.
what's actually going on that it's almost impossible to keep up with. And that's how I think it's changing it. I mean, but you got some of these guys out there, man. They're sharing some phenomenal, like,
Yeah.
just bits of information. I mean,
Definitely.
Yeah.
I've learned more. I've learned more about fucking the 240 from his name is hold on, look it up. Opinionated machine gunner. I've learned
Ooh,
more
I'm gonna
about the
check it out.
240 from that
Mhm.
than I ever did from like reading the TM. I'm like, no shit. That's what he means. You got a young lieutenant out there. His name is actually Lost Lieutenant. It's hilarious, but he puts out really good stuff like all the time. It's like
Things that
pickpocket
apply.
classes. Yeah, they're things that apply. And the thing is, like, there is a fine line. None of them are putting out anything you can't find through a Google search. So,
Yeah.
you got some people that are like, oh, well, they're spreading our secrets. These ain't secrets, man. Like,
Yeah, no.
go on Google. You'll find
Yeah.
every one of our pubs is on Google. So all they're doing is putting it into a more condensed, more
Yeah,
compacted
exactly.
ability that meets the 30-second attention span of today's generation.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's not
Absolutely.
like they're putting out freaking, like when we were all in Afghanistan, like they're not posting on Facebook like, oh, hey guys, we're heading out to fucking Musa Kayla, just so everybody knows. Plop,
Yeah. Yeah.
and sends it out,
No,
and then you have a problem.
right. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I think that they do a really good job of policing their own to a point to where there's no reason why other people have to get involved in it. They just don't. I think that there's a couple. Every now and then, I'll read something. I'm like, oh, guess what? Like, We all swore an oath, and First Amendment sure as fuck was a part of that oath. So if you don't like what somebody's doing and you want to say something about them, like there ain't no stopping it. I mean, yeah, at least you can read it. They're not just flat out saying it behind your back at that point,
For sure.
you know?
Yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah.
I've gotten into it, not gotten into it, but we've had differences of opinion, and I give a lot of credit to him. At one point, I had a difference of we saw life a little differently. Me and Maneuver Up, and I was like, "Hey, man, give me a call." Gave me a call. We chat about it, and I talk to him probably about once a month now,
That's
just
awesome.
about different things going on in the Marine Corps, different things going on with it. Because that's also a guy like me. I'm removed. That's how you find out. Hey, this is what the force needs. This is what they're looking for. This is what they're wanting. Because when you have these communities, if we say it all the time, right? If you want to find out the heartbeat of the Marine Corps, you go to the junior Marine.
Yeah.
That's where the heartbeat lies.
Sure.
Marine may be at the upper levels. The heart is always going to be the E3. As long as we are a system built on recruitment, not retainment, the heartbeat is at the E3 level.
Definitely. Do you think that'll ever change?
No.
How come?
And I don't think it should.
Tell me, unpack that for me.
We're a young force that is meant for the first 96 hours of securing a foothold via land, sea, air, whatever it means. That is the mission of the Marine Corps, is to literally walk in there, punch you in the motherfucking mouth for the first 96 hours to allow that foothold to be secure for larger forces to flow in. You want that 18-year-old full of hate and discontent being the one throwing the right hook.
Definitely.
That's just the bottom line to it. You don't want,
You're
some of these
talking to
older.
one right now, not to interrupt you. You're talking to one right now, and Nick.
Yeah, you don't want it being a guy like me. That's not the heartbeat. Like my ass is probably, if I'm lucky, I got to get off the ship. That's all that it came down to.
So what I think of when I ask that is just because guys that do one tour, two tours and get out, they have all this knowledge. You know what I mean? Like to me, I would think you'd want to retain that to a certain degree to.
And I think that they're making attempts to do it. I really do. As an institution, I think that we are. I mean, you look at some of the initiatives that have been put out in the last year and a half. Some of the different opportunities, and I talk to guys all the time, and they'll hit me up, and they're like, "Hey, if this would have been an option when it came time for me to reenlist, I might have stayed." Okay, cool. Then you got other guys, they're going to get out because I signed up to do one thing. That thing wasn't provided to me.
Of course.
So it is what it is. But I think that we are made more strides in the last couple of years to try to retain some of those individuals than we have in previous years. But at the same time, it's the cycle, man. We're always going to lose people. We're going to lose great knowledge along the way. And until we find a way to, continue to harness that, I think that right now what we have going is one of the better things that we're going to get. The other thing that I'll tell you is, in my lens right now, I'm not a recruiter. I get to watch what recruiters do. I didn't go to school. I didn't earn the 8411 MOS. I'm a firm believer of that, man. You don't call yourself something unless you earn that title. That's the way that it is. So I am all in charge of the recruiting operations within Louisiana and Mississippi, and I get to watch what these guys do. But the greatest recruiter that you're gonna find in 2023 is that guy that got out or that girl that got out. That's what it is. They are the influencers. They're the ones that are, swaying people to go different directions. They're the ones that can tell their story, because we can put out all the fucking propaganda we want, man. The issue is you always want that firsthand story.
Yeah, definitely.
You want that story from that young 18-year-old who, hey, I was you 4 years ago. What my
this is what's going to happen. Yeah, exactly.
And I got out, and this is what it comes down to. So you can choose to either push all them to the side, or you can choose to fully embrace them, have conversations with them, figure out what's going on, figure out what they're seeing. And that is part of learning the environment that you're operating in.
Good to go.
Yeah.
So I'd be remiss if I didn't. I love your opinion, man. And I'd like to talk current events with you a little bit, because I don't even know where to start, but
Ma'am and sir, let's start there. See how you feel about that, Mr.
that's I
Perry.
think I think that was bullshit, dude. I don't think that was something real. We're
Which
talking
one?
about we're talking about how they're trying to take away ma'am and sir from boot camp. I think that was just a bullshit story.
I don't even know if that's honestly in this in lip service. I don't know if that was a real story or
Yeah, I
not.
don't think it
I
was.
know that I was just at. I mean, hell, a week ago I was on Paris Island at a conference that we have, and you've got the recruit training regiment CO standing up there, and but I mean, this is a guy who's prior enlisted drill instructor, just a freaking honestly an awesome CO. I would really like to work for that man as in some capacity.
How's it looking
Um,
down there, bro?
I think that what he has done is pretty damn awesome. Like I really do. I think that they are doing a really good job of battling the current all the shit that's been thrown at them in the last 3 years. I mean, man, I've been on this job now for 38 months, so I've seen COVID come into play. I've seen COVID go out of play. I saw when we had to separate the beds. I saw when we had to bring them back. I saw all of that stuff from the recruiting side. I didn't see it from his side, but when you factor in the challenges that we face and then you factor in the challenges that they face down there, the fact that we are still able to put out the quantity and the quality of the individuals that we are is a pretty big testament to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I can understand. I can see that. I
But whether
can.
or not Mam or Sir was a real thing, I honestly couldn't
Yeah,
tell
I
you.
doubt it.
Didn't even think to ask
I
that
doubt
question.
it. Uh, let's I don't know. How do you I'm trying to dance around this without saying what I'm thinking here, but how how is the leadership at the very top? How does it affect what you do?
So I got asked that question by a parent, and I said, I joined under a Republican president. I've served under a Republican president. I've served under Democratic presidents or Democrat presidents. Um, I will outright tell you, I've never noticed a difference at my level. That's just the way that it is. Are there some decisions that I disagree with on a policy stance? Probably. But I'll also tell you this: I am a firm believer that there's a reason why that while we're in the uniform, we should be apolitical. Um, I don't I mean, I'll devil's advocate whatever you throw at a certain point, to the point to where you want to take the farthest right approach, I'll take a far left approach. You want to go far left,
Yeah,
I'll go
just for
far
shits
right.
and gigs. I hear
And
you.
it's
Yeah.
more so meant to spark the conversation.
For sure.
I think that we're in a tough time, and the
Definitely.
recruiters that I have are answering some tough questions
For sure.
from some different parents, and they're doing a pretty damn good job of trying to communicate that we serve a constitution. We don't serve. This isn't a dictatorship.
Yeah.
We serve under a principle, and
Yet.
most importantly of all, we serve for each other. Because I'll tell you, any contact that I've ever been in, I didn't stop, look at my phone, and see who the Speaker of the House was. It was
Very
all
true.
right. Hey,
Very
fucking
true.
Corporal so and so is on my left, Staff Sergeant so and so is on my right. We're going home.
Well put. Well put. I don't know, man. I just maybe I'm spending too much time reading on the gram, but this whole BRICS initiative with the changing of the I don't know if you heard about the dollar being dropped over in China, Russia, Brazil, a lot of these places, and they're trying to move away from the dollar. And I don't know really what's behind that. If diplomacy isn't really an option over there anymore, I guess they're just going right to trying to hit us where it hurts or what it is, but it's just a difficult time to be growing up, I guess. I just
I think it is. I think that it's probably a similar situation to what people who grew up in the '80s could talk to us about. Um, I think history repeats itself. I
definitely,
do, and I think
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that's why we should be students of it. That's why we read. That's why one of my favorite quotes is was said by General Mattis about somebody asked him, like, why do you read so much? And he's like, I read so much so I'm not caught off guard because all this stuff just replays itself over and over and over again.
Damn.
And I'm like, damn, that's
Right?
actually a really good principle
Yeah.
and a really
Yeah.
good way to look at the problem set. So I don't think that honestly, I don't know enough about economics to really talk
That's fair.
about what
That's fair.
that dollar change would do. Man, I was
Yeah.
a poli-sci major, and that was only because it was my fastest way out of college. So when you look at it, I think that there's a lot going on. I think that I'm a New Orleans Saint. I'm a diehard fan of the Saints.
Sorry.
Greatest team
Sorry,
in
man.
America.
Sorry.
Don't talk to me about that. But Sean Payton had a quote before he left us.
Before he left
but
us.
it was, and his
Before he
quote
came to
was,
my team, you mean? To come
yeah,
fix stuff?
before yeah, God bless you all. But he was famous for saying, do your job. And the reason why is this is back to Bountygate. And, a lot of the players were sitting there talking, oh, we got this interim coach. We got this, we got that. You got players trying to be coaches. You got all this stuff. And he's like, you son of a bitches, if you just do your own job and not worry about anybody else's job, we'd all be fine. And that resonates with me because I'm like, if I'm worried about, what the fuck we're doing with the goddamn yen or the Chinese money and what are the India trade routes and well, what are we doing about the fact that Chile's producing 50% of the pork for China? Like, dude, I got a lot of other shit to worry about right now. And then if I'm so worried about that, who is taking care of my guys?
Yeah.
Because if I'm so concerned about what somebody else is doing me dirty or doing something like that, well, are they taking care of my guys? Because they're probably not. So in reality, I'm the one who's fucking my team over here because I'm so worried about trying to be up and on this stratosphere.
Well put.
Yeah. And, like a lot of, like, at least in my generation, like there was a lot of like disgruntled fucking corpsmen because they're like, oh, why do I have to know how to do this? And I'm like, and, there was a lot of disgruntled Marines because I was a combat lifesaver instructor. And, they're like, why do I need to know that? I was like, well, I know your job. So you need to know mine. Because if I go down, I'd like for you to be able to do my job. And if you go down, I'd like to be able to know how to do your job. You know what I mean?
I think that's invaluable. I think that it's the same thing. Like I'll look at it from my perspective. Being a young platoon commander, like platoon commander, platoon sergeant relationship. Like, yeah, we have our lanes, but sergeant's got to be able to do my job.
Yeah.
It has to, because if I get hit, somebody has to take over that unit. It's the reason why we brief succession of command. But at the same time, we're talking on a lateral basis. If the Speaker of the House goes down, they're not calling Matt Perry like, "Hey, you need to be in Washington D.C. tomorrow because you're now." No, that's so far. They're so far removed. I'm so far removed from that. I worry about my job. I worry about controlling what I can control because there's already so many things that I got to do on a daily basis. Worrying about if other people are doing what I think is the right call only ensures that I'm not making the right call in my level.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's good shit. That's fair. Yep.
Honestly, but I think we can leave it right there, buddy. I wanna thank you for coming on the show again, man. I love talking shit with you. I love I love your opinion, man. You keep it real, and honestly, I can't get enough of that, dude. Doc, you got anything for him?
Matt, it was a freaking honor, man. And yeah, it is fun talking with you because now you can't get either one of us in trouble.
No, I really enjoy these conversations. I've been blessed over both my billet now as well as through trying to navigate social media to meet a lot of guys who have served, who have gotten out. Anytime I'm in New Orleans, I hit up a guy named Mason. He's the Dead Gunner poetry guy. He's another guy. He's got great, thoughts and different takes on, everything from current events to
I think I've seen his page.
From machine gunnerism. I mean, he was an 0331 back in the day, and we'll go sit there and we'll crack a beer or 5 or 6 and just talk about, life and stuff like that. And I love having conversations with things like this because I think that, it is and we're from different generations. But I think that it's a culture that you have to continue to embrace, and whether they're not just good for you while they're in, they're good for you, throughout your entire life, because there are far more Marine Corps veterans than actively serving Marines. I'll tell you that right now.
It's true.
And when you sit there and you look at it, it's not just oh, well, you're not in right now. And in my case, oh, you can't go recruit for me right now, so you're not worth my time. It's instead, it's all right, man, how do I continue to do this? Because you don't know. And this kind of goes back to the original conversation we had. I've seen people smile for 5 years and then end it. I thought he was so damn happy. Like, I looked at his Facebook page a year ago and look at him. He was standing there with his white picket fence. Like, you have no idea what people are actually going through until you actually sit there and have conversations with them. There's no reason not to, with social media, with fucking Zoom, like we're talking on now, with text messaging, with shit like that. Like, you don't have an excuse to not reach out and talk to people and try to touch people, because what is it doesn't matter how disgruntled they are. What does every veteran want? They want to know what's going on inside the institution. It doesn't matter how miserable you
That's
are
so
inside
true.
the institution. What do you want to know? You want to know about other people's experiences inside the institution that you are, quote, so miserable in right now. So when you sit there and you have that conversation and you're able to actually connect with them and just feed off of them, that energizes me. Like, that's what I look for.
Same here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I'm gonna get in touch with you, man. I'll get your information. I'd love to talk to you, even if it's just me and you shooting the shit over the phone.
Dude, I live for those moments. I mean, I sit there and I spend, on average, I tallied it up the other week. I spend probably between 30 to 40 hours in a week in a car, driving from site to site. Like, that's what I was doing tonight. I'm sitting there texting them and I'm like, dude, I'm fucking running behind, like, but I'm trying, I'm going to get there, blah, blah, blah. But that's what I started doing. At first, I'd listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to podcasts when I run now. I don't even know the last time I listened to music when I ran.
I know, right? I was thinking about that the other day.
But when I sit there and I look at it and I say, while I'm on this car, and that's what I'll do. I'll go to my phone book and I'll scroll and I'm like, boom, haven't talked to him in a minute. Talk to him. I got guys who I set reminders on my phone. I got guys, 30 days after a guy leaves the unit, a girl leaves the unit, I text them, hey, how's the new unit? How you doing? Blah, 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 blah. Because why? Because most people are checked in within 30 days. So it's just constantly keeping in touch. It ain't no gain to me. And some of them don't write me back. That's fine. At the end of the day, I'm not going to say like, hey, you're value added to me here, but when you leave, I don't give a fuck anymore. That's just the case. You can't sit there and say that you cared about somebody as your brother or your sister while you were in the same unit, but the second that they left your unit, now they're just nothing
Facts.
to you.
Good point. Yeah, definitely. That's why me and Nick, that's how I got brought on to this podcast and why we still talk. Because I was a combat replacement. They left country fucking 2 months before I did. So I was just stuck there in the wind. I was like, but we all still, for the most part, a lot of us still talk. So
let me, sir, let me
100%.
Let me ask you this. So we're about to do our first merch drop. I'm doing a OD green shirt just with like our decal on the front and the back, flag on the side. Is there any I don't know, what are you allowed to wear under camis?
I think you can wear
as long as it's like the OD green, right?
I don't even like wearing skivvy shirts. I'm not gonna lie to
do
you.
the same thing.
Like, I'm a 7th Marines guy at heart.
Okay.
And I remember I checked into 7th Marines. I had on, I'm coming from IOC. I'm all excited. I got my OD green shirt, like so far up you can't even tell I got a neck. And I remember my battalion XO looked at me. He's like, undershirt on. I'm like, oh, sir, like this lieutenant. He's like, why are you talking to me like that? he was like, look around. And I'm like, look left, look right. I'm like, nobody else has them. You go to like the 29 Palms PX, and like all the shelves are fully stocked with OD green skivvy shirts. And now what they don't teach you is that if you're gonna go that route, cut out the tags inside your blouse. Otherwise, you're gonna buy all the Vaseline in there as you're trying to get your, to stop bleeding. But from what imagine is that as long as it's OD green and doesn't have anything exposed up here, it's the same way. I mean, you look, we have unit shirts all over. I've got shirts from different schools that I've been to. I've got all that stuff. I mean, it is what it is when it comes to that.
Cool. Good to go. We'll make sure to get you one. But
no, I'd love it.
Oh yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Major Matt Perry, episode 59, Hard to Kill podcast in the books. Have a great night, gentlemen. Semper Fidelis.
Prefer.